Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. This is Marilyn Shannon with the Breaking Free Show, and I'm so happy to have all of you join us today. Each and every week, it's just a pleasure to be here. I'm so inspired by my guests and all the things that we talk about and the things that we learn together. So, as I say, listen with me. So, hold on. I want to say hi. I'm Nan.
Hello, Marilyn.
You've
How
been
are you?
very busy over there this morning or this
Well, I'm
afternoon.
still getting used to that new software, so it's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
All right, so we have this great new software that does some great new things, and Amnon is working at it, and it's fabulous. So every once in a while we have a little glitch, but we're past the glitch of the day, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we're live on Facebook, we're live here, we're live there, and we're live and ready to go. All right, so I'm going to introduce my guest to you today, and you know that I always want you to tune in, chime in, whatever you want. Just communicate with me at 919-518-9773 during the show, or you can come in on Skype at Computers 2K Voice from wherever you are in the world. That's why we do this, so that the world can tune in and we can tune in together. We have that platform. Isn't that cool? And then you can come in our chat if you just want to put your name, nickname, whatever you like. And there's a whole bunch of people in there, and they'll be talking and asking questions. So we'd love to have you. So today we have a very nice friend of mine that I met on Google Plus, and I love her. So Jessica Dewell, hey, yay! How are you?
I am well, Marilyn. It is Monday. I've been watching people bustle around with the case of the Mondays. I have not had one of those. So knock on wood, my whole day today has been in this flow, and I've been able to observe, and it's really cool to see more than I usually do on a Monday morning.
Cool. Well, maybe that's because you were coming on our show.
It very well could be.
Maybe we were just connected and tuned in together, so that's wonderful. Mm-hmm. So, Jess, tell everybody some things about you. And before she does, I do have to say I love social media because of what it has to offer. And when you do it from your heart, when you do it right, miracles happen. I met Jess, and, you know, it's just been a wonderful connection. So I just want to give a shout out for that because you just never know. But anyway, tell us everything about you, Jess. Everything.
Everything?
Oh,
man. Well, my first kiss was in the 4th grade.
All right.
No, that might be a little too far
Mine
back.
was in the 1st.
Oh! That cracks me up. Yeah. I should have known, Marilyn. Yeah, I'm a business advocate. And what that means is that we go into business for a particular reason, to solve a particular problem that we know other people have. And when we're doing our craft, when we are in our zone of genius, if you will, sometimes that doesn't include how do you make the business run effectively. So I bridge that gap between that place where you work and love to be and create and the business side of things. So we can do what we want to do and do it in a sustainable, profitable way, so that we can see effective decisions and problem solving along the way. And to do that, not only do I blog and am I on social media, I also am the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio.
Fabulous. And we'll get into more of these specifics of what Jess does as we get on with the show, and we'll share her website and all of that good stuff so you can stay connected to her just like I am. So what are we talking about today?
Oh, man. You know, I really think we need to be talking about grabbing chaos by the hand, Marilyn. It is something that we all have to deal with. I mean, there are so many unknowns in every part of our life. And then when problems crop up, we've got the unknowns plus any problems, and that can compound to craziness.
Mm-hmm. So leading into out of the craziness and the chaos means we can't give up. If anything, we have to keep on going, and that's what it's so great about finding a friend like Jess and others out there, is that you connect with the people who are, you know, doing similar things as you, feel the same way as you do, helping each other, inspire each other to keep on doing what you have to do no matter what. Right? So
that's right.
What do you think?
And that's why I say grab chaos by the hand, because sometimes it's to get grounded with your friend on one side of you and the chaos on the other, and have that knowledge that we're moving forward and we're not doing it alone, nor do we have to, because we have a skill to practice that we can bring in and use. And by the way, one of the steps of that skill is listening.
Mm-hmm. Well, to me, listening is, it's like the most important thing.
It is.
Everything, as far as I'm concerned, starts with, ends with, is because of listening. So tell us some of the things so first of all, before you go any further, describe chaos.
What is chaos? The unknown, the things that we feel like came out of nowhere and we don't know why we have to deal with them right now. The things that must take precedent in our calendar and take up our precious time in our day of 24 hours that we weren't planning on. And it pushes other things that may be very important to the side for a little while. Mm-hmm. And we don't know. And you know what I find that's one kind of chaos. A second kind of chaos, Marilyn, is when we have to decide what we're going to do next. We must choose, what are we going to do for marketing? What are we going to do to train our employees? What are we going to do to make sure that we're creating shared meaning in our organization? And how are we going to do it? Those are things we can't research and find an answer to. We have to take a leap of faith.
So chaos, so some of what we're talking about with chaos is when you have lots of decisions to make and you don't know which one to make, so that becomes chaotic. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, the things that you have to prioritize in because they're screaming really loud at you.
Okay. And I would also add that about the chaos that goes around you. I mean, whether it's family and, situations that occur, but also just the things that go around us that we have no control over, that we can't make a decision to change. We can only decide how we want to look at it, and how we want to stay on our path to what we want, no matter what is going on around us. And I'd like to add that piece too. So go ahead. So take us to, so where do we start?
Where do we start? Well, I like the fact we started with chaos and the 3. We added now a third thing, just that stuff we have no control over. And I actually think that's really where we start, is we know there are very few things we actually have control over in our life. And that really is us. Mm-hmm. It's us. And so when we're looking at that and we say, okay, so now I have to bring this to my team. I have to bring this into my business, and things might be going great, or there's been a plateau that has been hit, or maybe even you're starting to see the beginning of that downward spiral and go, because other things have taken priority is usually what it is. And so how do we refocus? How do we say, okay, so what we have control over ourselves, and where do we start? And this is where, we must have some empathy for ourselves as much as we do for other people. And the concept of what empathy is, how it works, what we might be doing around it starts with listening, doesn't it, Marilyn?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, tuning into knowing, first of all, that you need something or that something is out of whack takes a hearing. Takes a noticing, which is all awareness and listening to me. So yeah, I think that's a really good place to start. Mm-hmm. Because if your ground is soft and mushy, then what can you put on top of
it? Well, a lot of things. Hopefully it's a boat or something else that floats.
Yeah. But if your self is not stable, you can't add any more confusion.
Well, you can. It just isn't. It's going to actually slow us down, right? When we do that, and we avoid.
Yes. And you can't clarify which direction to go, or, it's confusing. So that's a really important thing. So and we're talking about leaders, right?
We're talking about leaders.
Leaders.
And yes. And I suppose we could extend that to leadership. And those are two very different things in the world that I work in. Okay. We have people that are responsible and accountable for making decisions and understanding and owning the outcomes of those decisions. And we also have this concept of leadership. How do we show up? What are we doing in these roles that we find ourselves in? And are we being the best that we can be in that space? So I break those apart, leader and leadership.
Okay. So leaders are leading.
Yes.
Okay. And then who's doing the leadership?
Everybody can have leadership qualities and work on those leadership qualities. Okay. That is your personal integrity, living by your values, being genuine and open.
Got it. Okay. All right. So it's important. So empathy, how do you create empathy when you're working in a team or you're working in a corporate environment?
I think we need to start with ourselves. We're going to go back to that inner knowing that we mentioned. Mm-hmm. In the sense that when we talk about empathy, Brene Brown is very known for this, isn't she? She's very known for this concept of empathy and vulnerability. And, I like the word openness better, because when we are open, we are able to not only hear ourselves more, we're able to use what's around us to inform ourselves more. And so recognizing and noticing an emotion without being ruled by that emotion. For example, we all have people that press our buttons, all of us. And when somebody presses our button, we know, okay, we have some choices to make. We can react and be in that emotion when we respond. We can recognize that reaction is happening and say and choose to respond even though that emotion is there. And I know that there are some other options too. We're going to just stick with those two, because when we can recognize our own emotion, yet we can stand next to it and go, yep, sad, mad, glad, happy. And those are the most common, obviously, but then you've got all of the nuances of those, and you can go forward with that. That's a really great recognition, because we've already tuned in, yet we're still able to also tune in to somebody else, because when we wear that emotion, we no longer have the ability to be able to see emotion or sense where somebody else is.
Right.
So we're adding a second perspective, if you will.
Yeah, this is really, really important. And it sounds simplistic on some level, but it's so very important to give yourself the time to think about this, to feel these things, because without it, you can't be a good leader anyway. So Correct. It's really important to start with because obviously everything starts with ourselves. So to start with yourself, to take a look at these emotions and to really understand them so that you don't wear yourself out. So, we have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of good things ahead of us. Entrepreneurs, leaders, there's a lot of things that we can do. And we need all the strength, all the joy, all the creative energy we can find, all the connection we can have, anything we can, any way of feeling good, in a good way, we need to be able to do the things that we need to do, to have the confidence, the trust in ourselves. So this is very important.
And it's actually harder to practice than we realize. And that's one of the things where this concept of noticing and listening and just recognizing in ourselves, taking a pause, if you will. The other thing that we can really consider when we're talking about empathy is, in terms of this perspective, is, okay, so not only do we have our own reaction emotionally, what is the label we're giving the person or people that we're with? Is there a judgment of some kind? And is it passive or is it active? And oh my gosh, it's amazing when we start thinking about the words that we say and reflecting back, even if it's just for 2 minutes at the end of a day, one conversation, looking at the language that we're using, because anytime we decide something is wrong, anytime we put a label on it, like smart, poor, excited, we are giving our interpretation of it. It may be different than what this situation actually is, and it may be different than the experience of the person or people that we are speaking to.
Good point. Now, that's a great point. So think about this for a second, because you see yourself out of your experiences, right? So you're looking out to the world based on where you've come from, what's happened that day, what happened last week, what happened, 10 years ago, whatever it is. So it's important to come to situations with your feelings and your stuff, but at the same time, to be willing to listen into these situations with an open heart and mind, because we're not always seeing how somebody else is seeing something. So before we go on, I just want to invite everybody, please feel free to call in 919-518-9773. If you got a phone handy, or come in on Skype at Computers 2K Voice. You won't be seen, you'll be heard. And then also in our chat, we'd love to have you and engage with us in this conversation and ask questions, so that, we can keep these conversations alive, growing, expanding. Tantalize me with your question, please.
Yes, please. Bring it.
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about, taking a good look at yourself and who you're with and who you're working with, and being, authentic and honest and upfront and willing to even correct yourself when necessary. If you don't hear it right, to, ask. Well, right?
Exactly. And when one of the things that comes out of just these two things, understanding our own emotions and how we're showing up, and are we ruled by them or not, and then recognizing the words that we're using to label people, places, things in general, this openness that we're creating allows a curiosity to come through, Marilyn. And this curiosity, and I love that you want to be tantalized. That's a great word.
Yeah, I know. I don't usually use that word, but it did come to me, and I heard it, and I go, I liked it. I might use it again.
Yeah. That curiousness, though, without questions, we don't learn. Without the ability to seek more information, we are unable to expand our own realm of existence and the experiences that we're able to have, which plays into how are we ruled by our emotions, and are we being judgmental? Isn't that interesting how really, even though we've broken them out into three things, that they are super entwined?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, and this is important because, you go through, and a lot of times leaders don't think that, they have to, separate out leadership from who they are. And on the contrary, it is all, you've got to be human. You've got to be caring. So we have role models for leaders that sometimes, some of us may not like, right? You have to choose how you want to be a leader. And it doesn't have to be the way somebody else is leading. Maybe there's a whole new paradigm happening of leadership. What do you think?
Oh, I have no doubt about it, that we are in the middle of it. And in fact, there are so many of us that we're making decisions and we don't even understand the consequences, positive or negative, of the decisions that we're making, because we are not open to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And, I brought up curious. Curious is one of my personal values. And really recognizing this concept of personal value work can get us a lot farther when we are talking about emotions and emotion management, as well as judgment. Because when we know, and I only have three. I have three values for myself personally, because I can have a lot more. and they're defined by a lot of other words that are also important to me. But when I have 3, I can always refer back to them. So I know when I am in a Red Direction team meeting, what I am stepping up into as the values for Red Direction and the product and services that it's giving the world. And I can invite my employees to step up with me with their personal values, and we have an overlap, shared meaning of the Red Direction values. And you also take that, and I have house values. My husband and I came up with values for our house, which are different than my values. Yet knowing my personal values allows me to figure out and choose how to show up into my household to make sure that every action and decision that I am taking and modeling is in line with the values of our house. Right. And so now I have 9, right? We limited it to 3 in the family, 3 for me, and I made 3 for Red Direction. So that's 9. That's actually already starting to be a lot. So when we have more values than that, we get a little diluted, and it's hard to show up in our entirety and be fully present when we're unable to articulate and live with all of our values, our personal values at once.
So I find it interesting to talk about values and things like that because who I am at work is basically who I want to be at home too. So it is an interesting thing. And I also think what came to me while you were talking is I guess, based on what you're saying, is there's a lot of words that we've made wrong. Or let me say that I've made wrong. And, the word busy, I think, when people say, I'm busy. And so, it's kind of made wrong. So I kind of go like, okay, rich. I'm full and rich today. I'm not busy. I'm full and rich. Same thing with the word chaos. Chaos sounds like it's a bad word. However, I guess if I'm doing my work the way I'm doing it, I'm going to create chaos. No doubt about it. I am going to do it, and I might as well welcome it in and but what we're talking about is how to handle it. Maybe in stages, in levels and different things, but you're going to create it. And if you're not, somebody else is, so you might as well learn how to deal with it.
Cheers to that. One of the people out here in the world that I love and respect a lot, his name is Donnie Epstein. And he is a firm believer in the fact that when we get too comfortable, chaos is going to show up. So we end up managing the chaos to stay comfortable instead of actually recognizing that there's chaos and figuring out how to use it as fuel in a positive way to create momentum instead of a way to hold ourselves in this certain place. And I find that fascinating. And if we don't know our values, we may not understand that we are holding ourselves in this place. So really doing work around this concept of what are my personal values and how do I define them? Because just because I have a word like for me is curiosity could mean something different to you, Marilyn. Right. And so if I say one of my values is curiosity, you're going to apply your own meaning until you see me in action and showing up with it. And it's through the interaction that we figure out where we overlap and what is our common definition so that I'm transparent in that sense and you know exactly what I'm doing and you can come to expect what I'm going to do. And at the same point in time, with the whole world and all of the things that we have going on, when we're talking about chaos, we've got to grab it by the hand because sometimes we end up with 10 deadlines all due yesterday. Sometimes we end up with somebody at home that requires our attention, an aging parent, a young child. Sometimes our employees or our executive team face the same challenges. Sometimes we just wake up on the wrong side of the bed, or we've run out of toothpaste, or we forgot dinner and we get home and there's nothing to eat. All of these things are just stuff that happens, and it's things that we can't all do right all the time. And it's kind of crazy. It's hard for me to say that because I very rarely get it right all the time, Marilyn.
Well, that's part of doing the job you're doing. I mean, you have to have material. You have to have experience in what's working and what's not working. And how would you know what a value would mean if it worked sometimes, and then some values didn't work. So you didn't know that how do you know? How do you talk about that? If I didn't have a little bit of a good concept of what values were, I wouldn't be able to say you can change them. You can have them, you can address them, and then if they're not working, sometimes they're not your value. You might think they're your value, but they're somebody else's value, not yours. So, Jess, we have there's a question here on the chat, and it says, "What is your value for your home, family, and company?" Could you give some of your specific values to give? Because people don't sometimes realize what you can consider a value.
Okay. I actually wrote this down. I used this on the Voice of Bold Business last week. And this is going to be hard to see here. So my personal values are right under my name, Jess.
You might want to just read it.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
And elegance.
Okay.
Because I believe in truth, and I believe in truth bigger than myself and different than my truth. I believe in always being open and figuring out what might come my way. And I also recognize that when I stop and look and listen, there is going to be an easy way or a hard way. And my value is to choose the easy way, the easiest, simplest way. Now, I used that information to inform my family values, and Ryan and I, my husband, we came up with these together. They are honesty, awareness, and responsibility. And if you think about the definitions, truth, curiosity, and elegance, they fit very nicely into honesty, awareness, and responsibility. And then my company values for Red Direction are resourcefulness, advocate, and quality. Again, you can see how truth, curiosity, and elegance fit up into that. Because one of the things as a business owner I decided I had to do was that knowing that there was going to be chaos all the time, was that if I made my personal values the company values, anybody who came to work already had a bar that they weren't going to be able to meet. And that was wrong of me, and I'm going to say it was wrong. Or it would have been wrong of me to expect anybody else to have the same values I have, to be able to do the work the way that I would want them to do it, when we all have our own work style. And so if I had done that, and the companies that I have worked with to separate that out and create this concept of self versus other, executive team taking on their personal values and figuring out how to be ambassadors for and make sure company values are actually embodied and used every day, we recognize our differences, and then we're also more apt to be open and aware of the strengths of every single person on our team and how we can, as a company, do what we do more and better.
So values are pretty obvious when they're being worked. When a company, let's put it, are values easy to identify when a company is addressing them or not, based on consumers?
Yes, because it's in the sense that it is positive. So if I'm a consumer and the values are practiced at every level of an organization, everybody understands how they fit into and can do their work in a way that makes these values come to fruition. As a consumer, we don't have any problems. When we do have a problem, it's super easy, and we're seen and we're heard, and our problem is fixed. We're not given the runaround. We don't run up on these limits. We don't run into things that say, oh, well, I'm sorry, we can't do that for you, because the experience has been planned and it has been fully thought out, because we have all kinds of chaos going on in our world. And the last thing as a company wants is to have a chaotic, I shouldn't say that. Maybe companies do want a chaotic experience for their customers. I can think of a few where I've had chaotic experiences and it hasn't been very good, and it has affected my choice to choose a different service or product the next time, because I want to support companies that make it so easy for me to do what I need to do when I need to do it, or deal with something unexpected that comes up, to help my personal chaos, my business chaos, be more manageable, that they become part of my team of finding a solution. When that doesn't happen, there's just more problems for me to solve. And it's easy to just turn my head and go another direction.
So, chaos can be a lot of noise.
Yeah.
That surrounds us. So do you believe that anybody, or when you want to lead, you can lead? Could most people lead if they learn how to lead?
Yes. And in fact, it starts at home. I mean, let's think about just getting up in the morning. We have the choice to hit the snooze button 10 times and be late. That's always a choice. Then what happens? We have to deal with the repercussion of that. Our response is going to be, or we might react and go, now I'm in a bad mood because I'm going to be late and I know what's going to happen and I hear when it's going to get there, blah, 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 blah. That little voice goes on. If I don't hit the snooze button and I choose to get up and I'm grouchy, then I have another choice. If I go into the day grouchy, I have a pretty good idea that everything's going to be hard for me that day because of experience. I've done it before. So when I wake up and I'm on the wrong side of the bed, my first thought is, oh, shoot, I'm grouchy. What am I going to do about that? I change the order. For me personally, I change the order of doing things. I take 10 minutes and I have a cup of tea and I read a book. It could be a nonfiction book, a fiction book, it doesn't matter. I read a book. I reset right there. Now, meditation when I'm grouchy doesn't work. I get more grouchy. So I quit doing that. So we have to understand what triggers us, what allows us to move in and out of different emotions and feelings that we're having, because that will also help us when it comes to recognizing how much chaos is going to come to us in a day.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, and it's interesting sometimes when I'm, talking to parents, if you don't, as with parents, if you don't have, let's say your children are young or whatever, you don't have a bedtime. There's no just a definitive time between, like a bedtime and getting up in the morning. It's very hard to start. It's very hard to start your day when you feel like the day before never ended. So, that's something very important, I believe, for many people that work, is to make sure that you have that space, that you have that me time at night where it's not full of drama and stuff, because otherwise it's very hard. You never get away from anything like that. You're just always going to be in chaos.
Well, we can expand on that. In fact, so there's one perspective. What do we need as a parent to be able to unwind? Then the next part of that is, okay, so how is a lack of a bedtime, or maybe even what we think is an ideal bedtime, is not actually good for the child? This happened in our house. We have a little night owl. And so when the mornings are great, we found out a routine to make the morning work. Yet he was having a hard time waking up. And so what we did, after a lot of observation and awareness and communication between my husband and I, we were like, well, maybe we need to shift his bedtime up. We don't want to, because he likes to be up and we like to be with him. However, we also recognize the need to wake up naturally and know that enough sleep has been gotten, because if our little one doesn't get enough sleep, and our little one is 6, it's not only a hard day, and it gets harder, he's more tired by the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So we actually looked at what he needed and did some observation, and then we were curious and tried a couple of things to gently find a way for him to also benefit from whatever the bedtime was.
Sure. That's great. And Chris is on the chat, and she said, it's just a statement, not a question, but I think it turns into a question. She said, sometimes you don't even know you're in chaos, and I think it's important to acknowledge, like Jess said, companies are in chaos when their customers are not getting what they want. Recently my mother was here, and she sent 3 boxes with UPS from here to Florida for when she returned to Florida. They were supposed to due in on a Tuesday. Tuesday came, no boxes. They didn't even know where the boxes were. And one by one, she received her box, and the last box didn't even have a label on it. The label was not even on the box. To me, UPS is in chaos. So when you take a look at your own life, how are you, like we said earlier, let's go back. Let's kind of make a little circle. What is going on in your day to day that shows that you're in chaos? And I believe, and I know Jess does too, you can clean up that chaos or leave the chaos alone and work through. And just sometimes you can't do anything about the chaos. You just have to work in spite of it. And then how you're looking at the chaos changes.
Yes. And let me add to that. Yes. And it's true. When there are telltale signs, though, when we are in chaos, even if we don't know it. By the time we get home, we decide we would rather eat something quick over the sink and instead of sit down and make a meal. When we would rather crawl in bed than talk to a friend or colleague. When we dread going to work because we know something is crazy or we're expecting something crazy to be coming down the pipe that we have no control over. Mm-hmm. So those are just a few of the symptoms of knowing that chaos is around. And the more we're aware and we just practice noticing them, maybe there's nothing we can do about it. Maybe we work in a place and our boss is somebody who isn't very transparent and they really think that they're doing great by not communicating a lot of information. Well, if that makes your world chaotic, just noticing that will help you build the skill to be resilient and be able to do a good job in spite of the situation we find ourselves in. And I think the key word here is resilience and recognizing that. And as a leader, oh, did you want to say something before?
No, go ahead. I could always, you go.
Okay. Okay, very good. As a leader, we need to recognize when there seem to be breakdowns with our team. When we have a goal to get to and we have a team of people that we have employed and they have agreed they will help us get to our goals. And we have, by letting them be on the team and choosing them for our team, have agreed to let them participate in getting to the goal. There are some breakdowns that can occur. When we are the bottleneck, every decision that is ever made must go through us and get our approval. We are poor leaders. And I say that because there's breakdown. Things don't get done on time because everything is on one desk and there's only so much that one person can get through, knowing that they are going to be called from somebody higher than them. And that could, even if that means the board of directors, if you will. And so what are we doing and where do we feel like we're owning and grabbing for control that is actually disempowering our team and making them less productive and effective? And, you know, when we're leading, especially in regards to chaos, of course, I have an acronym for that. Of course I do.
Of course.
It's to launch effective and aligned decisions. And so what is that? Launch means let's have one and let's move toward it and say, go, we're on the path. Effective means we have created a way to remove obstacles for our teams, and we've given them the skill of problem solving so they may remove their own obstacles to stay as close to the path as possible to reach those milestones so that we all know we're moving down the path together. Aligned, that's what I just described, in light of the decision that was made. Because one person or one group, the leadership team, the executive team, is making a decision. And it's up to the executives and managers to be able to communicate that in a way that everybody understands what their role is to get to that goal so that everybody can do their job and we get there on time. Isn't that? So that's where lead, grab chaos by the hand and lead, launch effective and aligned decisions.
And there's a few things I want to say. First of all, sometimes you're grabbing that position and you don't think it's your position to grab. But when you know better, you can do better. And sometimes somebody else on the team may not know what you've just listened to with Jess and myself, right? So they're not aware of some of the things that we're chatting about, but you are. So wherever you can find the doorway into that team, by asking questions, by giving situations, whatever that might be, by sharing something to help this team connect, grow, find its values, create its values is really important. So everybody's valuable here, regardless of your title. So how do you relate, or how do you connect, or how do you associate goals and a mission? How are they this? How are they the same? How are they connected? How are they different? How are they related?
Okay, we're going to start with how they're different. When you hear a company, a company typically has mission, vision, values. Now, when the reaction to those is, yes, we have mission, vision, values, or yeah, we have a mission, vision, values. Okay, that tells you a lot about the culture of an organization right there. The latter is is not an organization that leads well. There's not a lot of decision making. There's something that's going on that makes whatever decisions are being made unattainable somewhere along the line. So when we talk about mission, this is, what do we exist to do? And just like each one of us has strengths and weaknesses, and we can use our strengths for good or evil. We can also use those strengths to contribute the most possible and give to this world what we have, because every single one of us is here with a very specific purpose and a very specific set of skills to make our world better. And so when we know that and we are showing up with that intent, we know our mission is to make the world better. Every company who has a mission out there is to do something better, to learn, educate, solve, make people's lives, companies' lives easier, and create a network that is supportive, because none of us does it by ourselves. Even companies. One company can't do it all by themselves. We all need other people and organizations. So that's the mission, and that's different than a goal. A goal is something where you can now get very specific. We want to make a goal that gets us toward our mission. We're living our mission with our goals. We know that we must be X% profitable to get the growth we want, to be able to build the infrastructure we need, to launch that next product, to further our mission. So we have to start small.
Do you really think, hold on a minute, I have to ask you this question. Do you really, and I want to, I really love focusing on companies that do want to make a difference, but you can tell when there are companies that are not out for necessarily making a difference, and that is not their mission, that is not their goal, and I don't even know what their a company that is really not out for making a difference, humanly, globally, whatever. What is a core value? Do they have any?
Yes, they probably do, and it would be, this is the kind of work I love. And this is good,
because this is what I've been waiting for. I want to talk about this.
Because, when we say we have a mission, vision, values, when the mission and vision and values don't line up, when basically we're acting one way and we're talking another way, even at an organizational level, when those don't match up, all kinds of stuff happens. Now, let's say there's a quadrant, and I can't remember all 4 quadrants off the top of my head. However, we're talking about speed of delivery basically on one side, and we're talking about some sort of value on the other side. And when we are looking for cheapest and fastest, our values are very different. And the way we operate an organization is going to be very different than more of a lifestyle, where we're going to put on some sort of an event, or we are, I lost my train of thought. So anyway, more lifestyle oriented. There's some sort of a different type of value and experience there. So if we're looking at it in terms of experience, when we are shopping for price, and there are a lot of you out there that do this, when you shop on price alone, you are going to be choosing companies that have the best price. And to get the best price, they may have manufacturing practices that if you actually looked at, you might not like, because they're outside of your personal values. They may not have a very good customer service department because they're like, dude, we made it cheaper on your own. So their values are going to be focused on different infrastructure related things and not necessarily consumer experience. And so they're all valid, they're all valuable, and they all contribute to the society that we're in. They give up people who, I mean, sometimes we can't choose what we want because of circumstances that are outside of our control right now. We only make so much money. We know how much it costs to put food on our table. And once we take all those things into account, we may not have the choices we would like. We can make the choices to the best of our ability. So we just have to recognize if somebody's core value is not customer experience, and I say somebody, an organization's core value is not customer experience, that's okay. That's their choice. And that means they're going to be doing other things that are incredibly important, incredibly well, to support their mission of providing something inexpensive to us quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very important to take a look at these things with how you're showing up, what image you're giving, and what image people might see you at as a business, but also to look at other businesses. And does that other business, support the kind of business you're in? Are you doing business with a business that isn't like you would do business? That's another way of looking at it. And all of this is, we have free will to make the choices that we want to make. And it's important to notice this. I've never looked at chaos exactly this way before. Like I look at my hair and I go, organized chaos. Because it's like, it's organized, but it's a chaotic organized kind of thing. But it is really important, I think, Jess, and I really appreciate the focus we've had on chaos, because when you have these values, you can handle chaos a whole lot better. And so it's important to reflect and say, like, I wouldn't have come up with the word elegant, right, as one of mine. But for me, mine are a little different, but they do, to reflect back and to remember them helps me remember who I am, to get through some things, to prosper, grow, and be the kind of entrepreneur that I want to be,
yes.
And put out the product I want to. So before we go ahead.
May I add?
Yeah.
And to show up the way I want to show up, regardless of what's happening around me.
Exactly. Yes.
Our world could be falling apart.
Yes.
We could have had the 3 worst phone calls we could ever imagine happen in 1 hour. Not to mention the fact everybody else is having a crazy hard time. We have all of these things that have been requested of us because as part of a network, sometimes we ask and sometimes we do. And all of those things come together and we get to choose how we show up in that. And that is chaos at its best. Anybody out there, our lives, every choice we make from the moment we decide, do we hit the snooze button? Do we stay up late the night before? Those are choices that we have the free will to make. And how cool is it that regardless of the choices we make, when we know there's chaos, when we know there's going to be unknown stuff happening, we have the opportunity to just show up and see what happens and stand strong.
Right. That's freedom. That's breaking free. I've often said, how do you accomplish freedom? How do you experiencing it? From breaking free from something. So when you have the right to not snooze or to, set your, you know what I mean? You
have a piece of cake instead of a salad. All those are choices and they affect what comes next.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's important for us to get on this bandwagon and say, you have choices. You most definitely, certainly have choices. You do not have to do it the way I'm doing it, Jess is doing it. You can do it your way, but you have choices. And I bet the more empowered people are to do it their way, the better they'll do it, the nicer they'll do it. I have faith. So before we go on with anything else, just again, tell everybody where they can find you, what they'll find, your website, all that kind of good promotional stuff.
All the promotional
stuff? All
this
promotional that you so earned.
Thank you, Marilyn.
You're welcome.
My main website is jessicadewell.com, and at jessicadewell.com, people can find out about. Thank you for listening, by the way, and enjoy. And I can't wait to hear what you have to say about this conversation, everybody in our audience. Marilyn, thank you for inviting me because the more we talk about this, the more we uncover what it means, the better we can be as individuals. And that's really what I'm here about. My whole mission in life is to make things that seem weird, unusual, or unattainable, pull that curtain back and go, yes, you can have that. Yes, it is attainable. Yes, it's not really as weird as we think, or it is, and we need to just embrace the weirdness. So there are workshops that I do and keynotes that I give. I'm also the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. I mentioned that at the beginning. And this is a radio show for people who want to invest in their own development as leaders and to lead effectively. And I also, I have a blog and I'm on social media. I'm pretty accessible all the way around. Twitter, I am most active on. LinkedIn, I am second most active on. And anywhere, though, you can find all the links on my website. Just reach out to me and I would be glad to engage in a conversation with you.
Yeah, I love talking about all kinds of stuff, business stuff, personal stuff, family stuff, dating stuff, relationship stuff, because that all makes up who we are. And the more we talk about all these things, the stronger we are to stand on our own 2 feet, to have a voice, to have an opinion, to, have a business if we want, whatever it is. I would love to see my entire audience out there, have whatever it is, a stake in the ground, a piece of something. And so, join the club of chaos. I mean, really, yay for chaos, because, I'm stirring it up. Now, the idea is I stir it up. I sometimes have to take a step back. I have to look at it. I have to say, okay, which piece of chaos am I going to deal with today? Sometimes, I'm involved in an event right now on Facebook, and it's a Women's Power Networking, which is an organization that I'm part of, and we're having this big event on Facebook, a get to know you thing. And somebody said, well, one of our administrators said, what do you do to relax and chill out after a busy day? And one of my favorite things to do is to have a diet root beer in a frosted mug. And of course, I love eating healthy, and letting everybody know I drink a diet root beer is like, oh my God. But honestly, that's a really tasty thing for me to do at the end of my day in dealing with all the beautiful chaos that I am creating. So, right? And
cheers to that.
Cheers with my root beer, and cheers to all of you. Cheers for having children and juggling your day. Cheers to coming home and cooking. Cheers to cleaning. Cheers to trying something new. Cheers to Jess, who I contacted, I think yesterday, and said, would you like to be on the show on Monday? Because it was, we wanted a guest and all that kind of stuff. So cheers to all of this, right? Huh?
I said chaos.
Chaos. Cheers to creating more and more chaos. Anyway, I have a book, right? It's on Amazon. There you go. In Just One Afternoon, Listening into the Hearts of Men is a series, and about to be a series, In Just One Afternoon. My next one, which I'm currently editing, is In Just One Afternoon, Listening into the Hearts of Twins. And I'm very excited about it. I was kind of shocked by some of the beautiful stories. I didn't realize how beautiful the stories were until I really started taking another look. So I'm really excited. You can find the first book on Amazon and hopefully soon the second. So Jess, in closing remarks, in words of wisdom, share them with us.
Grab chaos by the hand. That's it. Grab chaos by the hand and lead. And part of leading is knowing we might need help sometimes. And whether that's Marilyn that you reach out to, whether it's me you reach out to, whether it's somebody else that you trust and can be objectively and subjectively helpful to you, reach out to them, because we don't do it alone.
Yeah, I love that. And reaching out to people who are there to support you. Find those people. Find those people who want what's good for you and who are also, learning, growing, wanting to hear your stories, that when you come home at the end of the day and you said, I tried this at work and my team, blah, 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 blah. Find the people who want to listen and who will help you and give you some good advice. Is there a book, Jess, that you have read that you find really just empowering and inspirational that is good for leaders?
I do. Hang on one second. I'm going to get
it. Let's see what she's got. Yeah, because I think that's always a good, inspiring book to see what people are up to.
Well, yeah. Okay. So this is not going to be what you expect, and I'm doing this on purpose. I love biographies, and right now I'm reading 3 different biographies that are very important for understanding the role that women played in history. So one is called Rosemary the Lost Kennedy. Another is called The American Saint, about Elizabeth Seton. And the third is Dr. Tara Trent's Awakened Woman. And I just started that, and I'm super excited. Those are all amazing to understand the journeys of women that had powerful positions, whether they were born into them or not. Very important. The book I want to share with you now, though, is called Giraffes Can't Dance. So when we're talking about life, and life includes work, and life includes our families, this is a kid's book. And in fact, it's a kid's book that's a hardbound book. And it's about Gerald the giraffe. Mm-hmm. And it's about doing it your own way. It's about breaking free, not caring, learning to listen, and doing it your way. And that is the book I would leave you with, as far as something that's fun, inspirational, and a little different than you might normally turn to.
Giraffes don't dance.
Can't dance.
Oh, can't dance. That's great. And you mentioned the Lost Kennedy, Larson. She, the author that wrote the book, we had her on our show. Yes. Fabulous book. Yeah, fabulous.
I love biographies.
Yeah, I love them. There's a lot to learn from powerful, strong women and men.
And men, that's
right.
Yes,
and men. So I want to thank you so much for spending your time with us today and sharing your wisdom with us. We love you. I love you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And everybody out there, love having you here. Love to see you next week. If I can be of any help, guidance, service, direction, anything, please reach out to me at marilynshannon.com. You can always find all my stuff at marilynshannon.com, my website. And I'd love to hear from you, so please reach out. Jess, thank you so much. Bye. Bye, everybody.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.